Hey everybody. Sorry I had a very busy day. We'll just let everybody sort of start to filter in. Get things started. I'm going to share this on my socials, so give me a second, but we'll listen to some music together. Ready? $4:27 a.m. Jeez, that's commitment, bro. Thanks for being here. I appreciate that. That's wild. Oh, whoa, we got people watching from Istanbul too. That's awesome. It's so cool. All right. 8:27 p.m. Sorry, boys. Sorry I'm late. I had an unplanned event this weekend that took up my entire weekend, so it was fantastic. Yes, boys. Give me some rip doggos in chat, please. We lost a good one today. One of the homies. It was one of the saddest videos I've seen of the war. It was horrible. I'm sorry that I feel worse about a dog dying sometimes than a human dying. I think it's the innocence of it. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I love dogs, and I'll show the good boy, because he is just that, a good boy, and he sacrificed his life today. So I will show you that little dork real quick. Just kidding. He's not a dork. He's a good boy. Hello? Did I not just save it? Oh, there it is. All right. Here we go. All right. For everybody who doesn't know about the good little dog that didn't make it today, here he is in all of his pristine glory. Very beautiful. He went and basically jumped on an FPV drone for his comrades. So a hero in all regards, whether you are pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian. He does not know politics. He does not know anything. Yep. He does not know about war. He does not know what is happening. I don't even think he was technically a service dog. I think he was just a dog that was rescued from the front lines and was with a unit. And he, like I said, sacrificed himself. I think he actually physically caught an FPV drone and it detonated on him. So a hero. Yes, I know. He's your boy. Look, there he is. Look at him. Look at. He's a good boy. I don't know if you guys have dogs. This dog right here, he'll literally watch TV and stuff and interact with it, and he'll grab a toy and he'll go sit on the back of our couch with his head like this and watch his TV, and he'll chew on his toy. It's so weird. He loves Animal Planet and shit. OG. All right. So make sure you guys pay your respects to the man's best friend who sacrificed himself today. I'm going to take us over to the map. I have not done map updates, guys. So I've done one set of map updates. We have one area that we need to really talk about. I might do some map updates while we're going about this, because that might be interesting for you guys. So I'll bring us over here. So we can start off with the Avdeevka front. The Ukrainians have been counterattacking here massively over the last couple of days. They are trying to desperately hold this line of defense from Berdichi down to Tenonke. So, or Tenenke. They are fighting inside of Tenenke, which I had marked as completely captured, but it wasn't. The same with Orlivka. Well, it was, and then the Ukrainians counterattacked and have since pushed them out. So this is where the lines sit right now. Most of Orlivka is still under Russian control. Just this northern portion of Tenenke is under Ukrainian control. And then up here around Berdichi, we have a more complex situation. It's not super clear where the lines are right now. But the Ukrainians are fighting hard in this area, trying to recapture Berdichi, probably up in this area. There's gray zone right here. This map is not being fully updated because I believe that this is going to change in the coming days. This Ukrainian counteroffensive was extremely costly for the Ukrainians. I do believe it caught the Russians off guard. I think the Russians were prepared to move into these settlements and then focus on the next line of defense. So it did. I do think it slightly took the Russians by surprise, but they have been dealing significant damage. So, I mean, here's the thing. You guys have probably seen videos of dead Russians from this area. And you've probably seen videos of, Ukrainian armor, Ukrainian manpower getting hit by FPV drones, artillery, glide bombs, all of that, right? This area right here is probably the bloodiest on the map right now, where the most intense fighting is happening. There isn't really an urban area, so it's a lot of fields. Everybody is very exposed to FPV drones, artillery, glide bombs, everything. So this is probably some of the bloodiest fighting I've seen of the war right here. And the Ukrainians are throwing everything they have trying to hold this defensive line because there's not much behind it, and they're trying to stall to create more defensive lines behind it. But in doing so, installing that long, they've actually probably limited their military capabilities. Like the 47th Mechanized Brigade has probably taken some pretty serious attrition around here. We know that because they were gifted the Abrams after they went through most of their Leopards. And they have lost now 2 Abrams around Berdichi, somewhere in this area, and have also lost 2 Abrams breaching vehicles, which are like Abrams chassis, but they're designed for mine clearing. So, they're like a support vehicle. They're more of a support vehicle than an actual tank. They don't have an armament like these do. So a lot of fighting around here. The Ukrainians are committing all of their available and viable reserves, and I don't really know why. Even if like this is something I was thinking about today. Russia is in the position now where they can start. This is going to seem cold, so please stick with me here. They can start sacrificing a lot more manpower for gains, especially if it comes at the cost of also significant Ukrainian manpower. So, a 1-for-1 trade in this area might not seem the best for somebody from a military standpoint, or maybe a 2-for-1 trade. Let's just make it a pretty substantial kill-death ratio for the Ukrainians. One death for Ukrainians to 2 deaths of the Russians. Let's just, for argument's sake, that's what we're making it out. If we understand the significance of 1 Ukrainian soldier compared to 2 Russian soldiers in this conflict right now, the Russians can replace those soldiers, right? The Ukrainians cannot. So every single Ukrainian soldier that's lost is much, much more significant than the Russian counterpart that's also being lost. And if the Russians continue making aggressive moves, like this was sort of aggressive coming out of Avdeevka, it was a very quick expansion. Obviously, they're going to lose manpower, but if you're forcing the Ukrainians to attack for Berdichi, Orlivka, and Simkivka in these places, that's exactly what you want. I mean, the Russians are operating artillery with an artillery advantage. They're operating with a glide bomb advantage. And the amount of footage we've been seeing from the Russians over these past couple of days has been pretty significant. In terms of the self-propelled guns of the Ukrainian armed forces being destroyed, the air defenses being destroyed, the tanks and armored vehicles being destroyed. The Ukrainians are really just throwing a lot of resources at this, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think the reason they're doing it is because basically they have nothing back here. That this is the last stable area that they can control behind Avdeevka, and once it gets back behind this, they have nothing prepared. They have some trench lines, some this and that, but really nothing to actually prevent a serious Russian breakthrough. So they're trying to develop that next line. That takes more time than I think they're going to receive from this counterattack. I think they were hoping that this counterattack would be a little bit more successful. But yeah, it's not going to yield much results because the Russians have already regrouped from this, and now they're beginning to push out again. So in the coming days, I imagine that this line is going to be captured. I'm going to hide that comment. All right. Clown is here, so I'm going to bring Clown up. Other map changes that I have not started yet. We have Novomihailovka, which I will actually update. I haven't added the geolocation yet, but this town is looking very, very different now. So I'm going to bring this over here. This is not necessarily an exact situation, but after the capture of this industrial area, the Russians have pushed up into Novomihailovka much more aggressively. So let's do this and then do this, and we have a geolocation of a Russian flag being planted in the lower center of Novomihailovka right here. So we're going to update this map, and this is significant too because this is an area where the Russians have kind of been slightly deadlocked since they made a incredible amount of progress down here to the south. So, the Russians made a bunch of progress down to the south. They got into this part of Novomihailovka. Then their progress sort of stopped while they were dealing with Pabyeta and also moving up into Krasnohorivka. But now the Russians are back on the move here. The deadlock seems to have kind of been broken, and the Ukrainian positions in Novomihailovka are becoming much more untenable. As well, with the loss of Pabyeta, now the Russians are going to start to move down the 0532 highway. So that's the update in this region. I have not updated my map of Ivaniski, but the southern part has been captured by the Russians, so I will be updating that in a little bit. But for right now, I'm just going to leave it like this, because I don't have my sources right in front of me to see exactly what changes have been made in Belarus, in the Seversk salient. The Russians have, in fact, made more progress, or there is some serious fighting going on in this territory. Eventually, the Russian goal will be to capture this industrial mound, and then Belarus should fall. It's like very terrain heavy though. Like there's like a lot of like hills and stuff all throughout this area. So it's very difficult for the Russians to fight through. Once this falls, remember the biggest advantage that the Ukrainians got when they took Liman and they pushed into this forestry right here. Besides reaching Kremenna, which they never did, that would have been a big goal because then they would have reached these roads and they would have had more access. They pushed the Russians back from this area where they were close to Horivka, I believe, somewhere right here. And then they pushed them all the way back behind the Seversky Donetsk River and back into Belarus. And then this has been a tough nut to crack. So as soon as this does crack, the Seversk salient is going to be a much more fluid portion of the front. We did also get reports that the Russians have moved closer to Terny. I don't know where they are exactly. Again, I've been working and helping all weekend, so I've been very busy, guys. I do apologize for my normal updates have not been quite so normal. Somebody asked for the oh wait, I didn't mean to do that. Hold on. Let me link the chat in the thing real fast. Let me see. Clown, you can go also talk whenever you're ready, man. You're not going to interrupt. If you're here. If not, it's all good. All right.
Well, I'm back. I normally I rely on battlefield updates from you, so I don't have anything to contribute to that.
Okay. Yeah, but I'll take us back over to the map actually just for a second. I just wanted to talk about the. Let me think. Actually, do I want to talk about that? I think I might save that for tomorrow. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that right now. I'm gonna save that for tomorrow's stream. Guys, tune in tomorrow for tomorrow's stream. This is just more of a relaxed stream. We're going to go over some topical news and stuff and just kind of chill. I haven't done a stream for you guys all weekend, and I wanted to do one yesterday, but I was not feeling like it after I got done. So I'm going to take us over now to my Twitter. And we're going to look at some combat footage. This one is probably going to get demonetized, so I don't really care so much.
Oh my god! Please don't show the video
of the dog. No, hell no, dude.
Oh god, no.
It was unbelievable. I honestly believe that people probably should watch stuff like that, just so they kind of have a realistic idea of this war. I feel like a lot of people don't watch the really real stuff because it makes you very uncomfortable. But watching literally people suffer is like a reminder that war is not a good thing and you should not really be fighting it. And then a dog dying is just, I mean, it's so sad. So this is also very sad. A lot of women turning up in these AFU cemeteries. That is not a good thing. This is the death of a nation right here. This is what the death of a nation looks like. You know, sending women to the front means that you're basically sacrificing the future of your country. And it's not a particularly smart thing to do. I mean, it's when all the men have run out, you start sending women. So we got a report from Fighter Bomber that an A-50 AWACS reconnaissance aircraft for the Russian military has been delivered. We also have reports that they are going to rebegin production of these aircraft, which is a very important thing considering there may have been one or two potential losses of the aircraft recently. One has been replaced according to Fighter Bomber, and another one and more will be produced. So that's a pretty significant aspect of the Russian military industrial complex that a lot of people don't think about. So right here I put, this is the difference between Russia and the West. They can just decide to restart fabricating this aircraft because they have the base, right? The base, that same base in the West is looked upon as a burden to the state or a private company. So like, having empty factories just lying around is not a very profitable thing. You have to maintain those factories to some degree. It's wasted space. You're usually paying for a lease for a building, stuff like that. So for private companies, this makes no sense. And it's why the U.S. military industrial base is so pathetic. It's
absolutely. Well, it's not, I wouldn't say pathetic. It has a huge industrial base, but the problem is that reopening closed supply lines is non-trivial. There needs to be demand for it to justify the private company for making it. It costs money to expand facilities, to run round-the-clock shifts. The thing that they can't afford to do what Russia does, which is they don't close production lines. They just leave them running and ramp them up as needed because it's state-controlled. They don't care about profit.
Yeah. So when I said pathetic, I don't mean that the U.S. cannot produce. They can definitely move to a war footing, but in terms of their ability to support Ukraine right now, it's pathetic. Same with Europe. Their ability to produce shells, because there's not a huge incentive for private companies to, restart all that production and then start shipping shells off to Ukraine. It's just it's not on the table right now, and and orders aren't being placed like that, and factories are not being rebuilt like that. So this is an important event. This was the German missile cruiser, I believe. I have not verified this video, guys, but this is
I have verified it. In 2018, I believe it's the same kind of frigate that's in the Red Sea now with the same missiles, but this time they launched. That time they didn't.
Okay, so the failed missiles launched. This is not the event.
Yeah, that's 2018. That happened, but that was in
Okay.
2018.
Okay. So this is the same sort of so this is the same sort of event for people that are curious. The missiles failed after launch. Apparently, these missiles failed during launch. So again, I had not verified that video, so I was going to make that very clear. But the German frigate that shot at a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone, so obviously, friend or foe wasn't working very clearly there. They ended up losing. They shot two missiles at it. Both missiles failed, and the drone flew away. So that's really not a great sign for the German Navy. We have a video of RKB or RBK, 500 kilogram cluster bombs being dropped on Ukrainian positions. The important difference with this is now that the cluster munitions are being delivered via glide bomb, which was not the case previously. And so, this is a lot of damage potential to infantry and exposed units, especially in these tree line trench fortifications. The Russians will probably just start annihilating these and, doing more attrition damage to the Ukrainian military. Let's see. Again, I was just going to show you guys some footage. Here we have a Buk missile launcher with one missile on board, which is usually a telltale sign, right? They're supposed to have 4, I believe. And here we have the warehouse getting hit with that Buk in it. And there was also a claim of a support vehicle as well being destroyed. So 3 separate vehicles of some sort, make some models in there. Again, it's just like this sort of attrition. I'm going to show this video. Here's Sparta around Avdeevka just destroying Ukrainian equipment, right? The drones. And we can't tell what all has been destroyed and what hasn't been destroyed, but there's a good chance that damage was done to them. So, again, we have video after video of, drones dropping grenades, and
I wish they'd put better background music, honestly.
Yeah, me too. And then here we have the Abrams that was lost. This is around that BTR, I believe, that the Russians got kind of trapped in Berdichi. So you have the Russians getting killed here. You have the Ukrainians getting killed here. Where there was Bradleys lost in this area. There was a Bradley recently captured. The Berdichi is like the bloodiest area of the front right now, I think personally. Here we have that M1150 assault breacher that's based on the Abrams chassis. Again, these are very valuable vehicles. Huh? Oh, I thought that was Clown. That was the video. My bad. So again, another breacher vehicle down. These are big losses. These are not being replaced. But yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about on Twitter today. So that's enough of that. Clown, how is everything treating you?
Oh, not too bad. I was on Mario's big space earlier. Holy shit! Some people do not know how to do policy analysis. They do. They make policy recommendations based on things that aren't real. Like people unironically pushing the idea of a 5-to-1 or 10-to-1 casualty ratio.
I love it.
Kill ratio is. Look, people sometimes need a picture painted for them of what that looks like and how one-sided that is.
Yeah.
The classical example of a 10-to-1 is the Battle of Cannae with, when Hannibal destroyed 80% of a Roman legion.
Yes. Yeah, that
is not realistic.
No, that's 10-to-1 is like a massacre. Like 10-to-1 you would see, I mean, especially considering what I consider the Ukrainian losses to be, 10-to-1, there would just be bodies just piled. You would see massive graveyards in Russia unless they're hiding all of them, but it's hard to hide bodies like that.
The most one-sided conflict in modern warfare, arguably, is the Battle of Sarikamish during World War I in the Caucasus. 78% of the Ottoman Third Army was obliterated. That was between 2 and 4-to-1. For perspective, Vietnam was 3.5-to-1. 5-to-1 is obscene. 10-to-1 is the Rhodesia War or Kenai. It's not.
It's a
the Russian
genocide.
thing.
Like a 10-1 is like a genocide almost.
Like I
Unless-
don't believe the people on the Russian side saying that it's 10-1 in Russia's favor, and I certainly don't believe the Ukrainian side when they say it's 10-1, but yet they're barely holding on. That's like the entire army is obliterated.
What do you think? What if you were to put a number on it? What would you think it would be?
If we're being generous, parity. 1-1 if we're being generous, maybe 2-1. 3-1 is getting obscene.
3-1 for who?
I'd place it between 1-1 and 2-1 in favor of Russia, but I can't verify this. This is just I suppose an educated guess, but I don't talk about casualties much, as you know, because I can't verify that data.
Yeah, and it's not usually a good metric to decide who won a war. I mean, the U.S. won in Vietnam if you're counting casualties, right? And it's a dangerous road to go down.
3.5-1 in Vietnam, with all sides with all parties factored in deaths.
Yeah.
So it's I think where the 3-1 figure comes from is people are misusing Lanchester's force concentration equations, where you need 3-1 to overrun, but that assumes that you have equivalent fire rates. It assumes no force multipliers. It's a mathematical model which assumes that everyone on the front is on a front line shooting at each other, and this includes support, auxiliaries, everything, and that it keeps going until the last person on one side dies. Realistically, you're not seeing 3-1.
Yeah, I know you guys have this idea of like a casualty number, but it's going to be definitely different than what every single person thinks it is. I mean, there's going to be somebody who got it right, but it's you got to think about this war in a broader sense, right? The Russians are sacrificing men right now at a higher rate, maybe not than the Ukrainians, but than they normally are to make these advances. And the amount of pressure is going to eventually become overwhelming. So the Russian game plan is, again, still attrition, right? The Ukrainians cannot keep going forever. That's the Russian play. So I know people like to say like, 4-1, 5-1 in the Russian favor. That's difficult for me to wrap my head around. That's an extremely high loss percentage or loss ratio. And I mean, if you want to know probably who has more casualties, just look at who's firing more shells. That's how I would go about that.
Exactly. Even if we're using the Lanchester equations, the ratios fly off the handle when you give any one side a fire rate advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Russians are dropping more. I mean, are there any Su-34s flying for the Ukrainians right now? So you have a whole air force that's working for the Russians in terms of close air support that the Ukrainians don't have. So first off, add that onto the casualty list, right? There's very, very few bombs dropping on the Russians from planes, and a lot dropping on the Ukrainians from Russian planes. So add those casualties in. Add the 5-1 artillery ratio in terms of artillery being fired on the front in Russia's favor. Add the deep strike capabilities in Russia's favor in terms of staging points being hit and stuff like that. Add the FPV drones in Russia's favor, at least now. And another thing you guys have to remember is the war that we're seeing right now, the losses that the Ukrainians are taking right now is not the war we've seen the entire time, right? There's been times where the Ukrainians have taken much higher losses and times where the Ukrainians have taken much lower losses. So it's not going to be a direct ratio. There's going to be times, I bet, where the Ukrainian ratio was 5-1. If they were slamming their head into a wall trying to make something happen and it wasn't happening, then you would definitely have a momentary 5-1 ratio or 3-1 ratio or 1 or 2-1 ratio. It's going to change all the time. Colonel Douglas McGregor has seen evidence of 500,000 on Intel and 100,000 missing from Ukraine. If that is real, I mean, that's bonkers. But also you got to remember that people are pushing their ideas and their narratives. So if they've lost 600,000 men, Ukraine is going to be in a very desperate situation very soon. That is a ton of human beings. Seems likely IKEA Ukraine, but with IKEA will get 60 billion. I don't know where you're seeing that. It still seems kind of like deadlocked to me in the House.
Another thing people forget about the attrition rates, though, is it's not solely because all the manpower is dead. It's because they're hitting, but it's partially because they're hitting bottlenecks on mobilization.
Yeah.
They're not mobilizing their 18 to 27 cohort, and that's not a huge thing because it's the smallest cohort. But they also have 6 million refugees in Europe that aren't coming back.
A lot of those are men too.
Yeah, and you have to. It has to come into the equation. It's not just because we're not seeing them not have enough men on a battlefield. What we're seeing is they don't have enough men to. What was it? Zaluzhny said he needed 40,000 a month or something, and they're having trouble reaching that because if you mobilize the 18 to 27, it's a huge gamble. You're betting your country's future.
Yes, you're betting and it's your economy. I mean, that's the working group, right? 20 to 50 is like the working. That's the majority of your economy is that age demographic. Everybody younger than that is on the support of their parents. Everybody older than that is on the support of the state. So that's your group, and that 18 to 27 age group is the future of your country. That's your college students. That's your young male population. That's the people that are getting married and having babies. Those are the people that are pumping dollars back into your economy. So you do not want to mobilize them as late as possible. But yes, the Ukrainians are running into significant manpower shortages. Their mobilization has been absolutely abysmal, I think, since they basically purged their entire commissar department, the recruitment department. So yeah, and nobody wants to fight. I mean, we see people trying to escape over the Ukrainian border into Europe every single day. Every single day, people are trying to get away, and some are definitely successful. Some aren't. So
this is adorable, dude. I have a heckler in chat who thinks that I don't believe that anyone's dying.
Bro,
you need
as you watch videos every day of people getting eviscerated.
They need 500k troops and an additional 500k troops because they're in a war. There's attrition. They need concentration of force if you're going on the offensive.
Yeah, you don't lose. You're not asking for 500,000 men because you've lost 500,000 men. You're asking for 500,000 men because you're going to be burning through 20,000 men in injuries and killed in action every month, right? And if you start right now, start mobilizing 500,000 men in a year, you're going to have, 100, 200,000 men coming in every quarter from training, like quarterly, like you're going to have that addition.
Yeah, and you also need to rotate troops in and out. You could defend with a 1 versus 3 ratio, but you're going to go on the offensive with a 3 versus 1.
Yep.
That means you need more soldiers.
Yeah, you need bodies, and you need bodies for logistics. You need bodies for all sorts of things that people never think about when it comes to analysts. Doing good analysts for combat or wars. You have to understand that there is a time constraint on mobilization, right? You have to mobilize a year in advance. Like the Russians mobilized in 2022, late July or August, September, right? 2022 is when they announced it. And those units really started to show up during the Ukrainian counteroffensive. They started to be added into the combat zone, right? And those were reservists who have already had training and some volunteers, but a majority of the 300,000 that were mobilized were reservists. And those guys already are soldiers. They just need to be updated, refreshed, and then sent out to the front. The guys that Ukraine is going to recruit are all green. They don't have I'm sure they don't have the officer corps anymore to even train these guys appropriately. So they might try to send them to Europe or whatever, but Europe doesn't seem to be doing massive training programs anymore. I just don't know where all that's I don't know where that comes from, honestly. We have this question or this statement. NATO, US, CIA never expected to win a ground war. They expected sanction war victory. They expected the rest of the world to believe that the atrocity porn punished Russia economically. The same lies made of Hamas were laid on our yeah. So personally, I would separate those two. I think Hamas is very, very different from Russia, but that's just me. I think that some of the things that Hamas did were kind of, I mean, come on, they went in and killed a bunch of Israelis. So yes, I agree with the entire front part. They did not expect a long protracted conflict in Ukraine that they were going to have to support for years and years and years. That's not what they were expecting to do. They thought that the Russian economy, the gas station with nukes, would collapse under their sanctions. Obviously, the sanctions did not work. They're still trying to sanction Russia, even though it's been completely pointless. And the Russian economy is doing better, and they're pumping money into their military-industrial complex right now because they're running so hot. So
Yeah, that was a huge miscalculation on the West's part.
yeah, that was the miscalculation, right? So the Russians went into Ukraine expecting a certain kind of victory, a certain kind of battle, based on their intelligence that it did not end up playing out like that exactly the way they wanted to. No Operation Survive First Contact, obviously, but I don't think the Russians were expecting to be fighting in 2024 in Ukraine when they went in 2022. But the big mistake, right? Because Russia recovered from that. All Russia had to do was get onto a war footing and then start pumping out equipment, pumping out manpower. The Russian nation seems to be more than willing to fight. They don't seem to be having recruitment issues. They haven't mobilized again, which would have already happened in late 2023 if they really needed it. So that is another way you can determine casualties, is based off of, the 180 at the beginning, bump it up to maybe 220, and then the 300,000 on top of that. And then they're not mobilizing again, right? So they still have a very, very strong army in the SMO zone, as well as a reserve army in Russia for other reasons. But yeah, the big mistake from the West was believing that the sanctions would be the path to victory, and not, I don't know. What do you think, Clown? Do you think they should have sent more stuff to Ukraine in the beginning?
I mean, in hindsight, probably, but you got to go back and think of and consider what the thinking at the time was. Nobody wants to escalate this out of control. Nobody wants the escalation ladder to be climbed too fast. So they did what they were in a position to do. They overestimated how much, because they calculated that, and people like von der Leyen were saying this flat out in public, that they aim to destroy the Russian economy within a week. But they forgot that Asia exists.
Yeah, they forgot that Asia exists. They forgot that the global South exists. I mean, and they forgot that the European Union was not going to be able to actually cut themselves off from Russian gas and oil products. So they are now just buying that from India at a surplus, and Russia's still making the money by selling it.
They also didn't notice that the previous 8 years, Russia was doing a ton of import substitution in preemptively. It became an agricultural superpower over the previous 8 years.
Also, in a globalized world where you can go, where anybody can buy anything. I mean, the Russians have Starlink. Like, how they bought that through a third party. The Russians have, I mean, everything that they needed, they could basically get through Kazakhstan. Like, that's what people really, I don't think people really understand, is that, like, there are other places where you can get stuff from. It's not, the West does not control everything. They just threaten everybody like they control everything. And then, as soon as Russia was free of those chains that the West kind of like, that's how the West controls its hegemony. Once those chains were broken, the Russians were able to do things like begin trading with North Korea. I think, I've said this multiple times, I think North Korea is going to be one of the big winners from this whole conflict, because they now have a partner that is not afraid of sanctions from the West. And China now has a means to send equipment, whatever that is. I don't mean like military equipment, but like, chips, whatever they're producing that the Russians need, through North Korea into Russia. I believe that the Russians are also probably receiving Chinese ammunition through the North Koreans.
That's an interesting one too. I did a piece about that a few days ago.
Yeah.
According to the South Koreans, North Korean shell production is at an all-time high. the factories that are producing shells for Russia are operating at 100% capacity, while their domestic production is only at 30%.
Yeah.
It's obscene. These guys. So these guys have a lot of shell production because North Korea, as well as, has a doctrine that's very centered on artillery because they have to be. It's cheap.
Yeah.
Their food problem is solved because Russia's paying mostly in food and is believed to be supplying the materials to make the shells. It's that now they have their own domestic capacity, dedicated production. They have North Korea at full capacity producing for them. They have Iran at full capacity producing for them, and Ukraine has no one at full capacity producing for them. It's completely lopsided.
That's the difference. Is you're just going to see this start to become more and more apparent across the entire battlefield. It's going to get worse and worse. I'm just looking for a post real fast because this question is about this right here. All right, share Twitter. Here is the dog tag of the 17-year-old girl. Obviously, you can see 25/5 2006 to 25/7 2022. This is when, I believe this is probably when, what is this 2022? Is this when she joined?
Well, that would mean she joined at 15. That can't be real.
Yeah, so this dog tag, I don't know if this story was put up by a bunch of rather dependable pro-Russian accounts. So
I mean, I don't know if it's real. It's a huge problem. I mean, you have a minor volunteering.
Yeah. Well, we have seen 17-year-old boys die, so that's not new. But yeah, so that's what it says. I don't know if this is real. I mean, this seems like a lot of work for something that's like.
I guess it's partly that I don't want to believe that it's real kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't want to believe that there's 17-year-old girls out there fighting Russian soldiers. That is horrific to think about. Just sitting waiting to get hit by an artillery shell or FPV drone, like it's
when you're at the point where you're going Joseph Kony 2024, there is a problem.
Yeah. No. For definitely for surezies. Oh man. I am exhausted. If you guys have questions, go ahead and get them in. Questions for Clown or me? Go ahead, get them in. Coming up on 42 minutes here, so a couple questions to take us.
I just saw one in chat. It's not really a question, but the birth of the internet myth that North Korean shells suck. I love that because, or the argument it's 1950s factories. So
that's literally what all the factories are.
I mean, World War II saw the major parties involved firing 20 million shells each that they produced during that war with 1930s factories. Yeah. An artillery shell is an artillery shell. Russia's been using 152 mil since World War I. These are easy to produce. It's not some fancy modern technology. It's a fucking metal box full of explosives.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's literally it's a metal tube that you shove gunpowder in. It's like literally all it is. So, also most of those North Korean factories were probably produced by the Soviets. So, like, I don't really know what the point is supposed to be. It's the same.
The Soviets and the
probably
Chinese.
Almost the exact same layout as certain shell factories in Russia. To be honest,
it's the same assembly lines. It's ridiculous.
So a North Korean shell is not going to be any different than a Russian shell. Now, an Iranian shell might be different than a Russian shell, just because they're not as close. They have their own production lines, most likely. I actually don't know, but yeah. Thank you for your donation, Rareb. If I mispronounced it, I'm sorry. Let's see. Questions. Have you seen the US factories? Not too fancy either. No, they're not. That's the thing, is there's like this weird. My God, my girlfriend's being loud. There's this weird thank you. There's this weird oh, what is that?
Limeade with blue ras.
Oh, that's good. I got a limeade with blue ras, guys. It's litty. I always just do whatever. Huh?
Nice.
Yeah. Dude, we have a Sonic I don't know. Do you know what Sonic is?
A fast food joint. I think we have one around here somewhere, or used to, but I'm not sure.
The food is kind of iffy. I mean, some of the. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big burger guy, so.
I don't do fast food, but I am heartbroken that we don't have Waffle Houses in my city.
Yeah, but dude, that Sonic, their drinks, dude, are S tier. Like the slushes, everything they have, like you can make like so many different combinations. S tier, gold, love it. All right. Oh, I thought I saw a question. Does anyone know an estimate on how many soldiers Ukraine has left or in the pipeline? Yeah, no. See, we don't know. They hold their casualties so close. We don't know what size their army necessarily was when it started. They gave us a ballpark figure, but that could have been an outright lie for propaganda reasons, right? You just don't know. You don't know what the strength was. You don't know what their casualties are. You don't know how their volunteer recruitment has gone. We don't know how their mobilization has gone. So really, it's anybody's guess. You're going to find out at the end, and I'm sure almost everybody's going to be surprised either by. I think they're going to be surprised by how low the casualty number is, but how significant those low casualty numbers are to the Ukrainian army as a whole. Like, I think that a lot of people have this idea that the Ukrainian army is this like gigantic, massive military, and they mobilized all their people, and now it's slowly starting to get like whittled away and burned down. But I think that it was much. I personally think it was smaller than they had made it out to be. And the casualties are less, but every single casualty in that instance is more significant, especially because of how many men left the country. When went to Russia, men were lost in the zones.
All we know with relative certainty is relative certainty is the recruitment pool available to each country.
Yeah.
Ukraine's recruitment pool was about a quarter as large as Russia's at the onset. But this is including 17 to 20, just the 18 to 27 that they're not mobilizing. It includes all the people who left the country. So it includes all the people who stayed in the Russian-held territories and Crimea. So realistically, they have maybe 1/5 to 1/6 the mobilization pool. So every casualty for Ukraine is 4 to 6 times more significant than it is to Russia.
Yeah. This is a good question. When is Belarus coming in? I assume since they're being trained by former Wagner. I don't think you're ever going to see Belarus come in. I don't really think that there's necessarily a point for that. I think Belarus, once again, I think Belarus was another big winner of this whole conflict because not that Russia really cared about the sanctions on Belarus before, but now they definitely don't care. It's become basically a full union state. It is now protected by the Russian nuclear umbrella. They have, I don't know, is it just nukes stationed in country, right? It's not, they don't have them in their actual
they don't
military.
have operational control.
Yeah, so, but the Russians do, which means that by extension now Belarus is part of Russia. I mean, there's almost no point in delineating that on the map.
Belarus is it doesn't need to go in because it's actually doing strategically a lot of work just by being there.
Yeah.
Ukraine has to divert troops to the border in case Belarus comes in. Even if they never do, you can't take that risk. You can't invite them to come in. So so Belarus is attenuating Ukrainian force concentration, and that is a huge deal that requires almost zero effort on their part.
Especially with it being around Kiev, like being so close to Kiev, that there is always this fear that the Russians are going to try to do what they did in 2022, right?
Yep, and that column drove down to Kiev in 4 days?
Yeah, 4 days, and it's going to be worse this time if they do go about it because they do not have the reserves, they do not have the manpower, they do not have the weapons, the ammunition, and the Russians are now dealing with glide bombs, way better ISR, FPV drones. Bro, could you imagine if the Russians would have gone in 2022 with FPV drones? With this, I think this war would probably be over.
If they had the Lancets at the production rate and cost that they do now, it would have been a clown show.
Because imagine all of the movement, all of the uncoordinated movements going on. Man, if you were just a Lancet operator, you would just be in a target-rich environment 24/7. I mean, anywhere you go, target-rich. Let's see. When this war is over, will you continue with the geopol? Yeah, I don't see why not. I mostly started this because of the Ukraine conflict, but I have a general interest in this, and I don't see why I wouldn't keep doing it. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be quite as interesting if there's no, active war to talk about, but I believe that the next 10 to 15 years is going to be incredibly turbulent. So, of all the times to get into commentating on the geopolitics of the world, I think now is the right time in terms of being entertaining. Like if you go back and watch some of the Duran videos, they've been doing it for forever, and they were it was weird watching them during like going back and watching some of their videos during like peacetime. It's like a completely different vibe to their show, and now their show is completely blown up and changed into a whole different thing. So good for them.
That's good to hear because I'll be sticking around, and it's a lot more fun with you around, dude.
Yeah, I know, dude. It's when you have like people to talk to, it's so much better. It's like people that you like to talk to about it.
And here's the thing too: we're going into a state of power transition, which means that it's not just going to be more turbulent. We're going to see a lot of low level conflict for next several years. Nothing like this, I don't think. But we're going to see people getting cute.
We're probably going to see Armenia eventually
definitely
disappear, which is unfortunate. We will probably see something in Syria. I can't imagine there's going to be a very peaceful transition of power in Syria. There's like too many groups that have their own invested interest. Turkey is also in Syria. Israel is in Syria. The United States is in Syria. Iran is in Syria. Syria is like this hodgepodge of every single nation trying to play. It's like a huge gray zone. It feels like
it's a really bad time to be a Syrian Armenian.
Yes, seriously. I was just about to say, bro, you are in it right now, ethnically.
It is what it is. I think Syria is like the big issue with Syria is going to be how to normalize with Turkey.
Yeah,
because once that happens, then like they're not distracted enough. Israel has to back off.
Yeah.
So I think
I just assume that that's going to be a pretty turbulent area, just because it has been since 2012, and I don't know why it wouldn't continue being that. Obviously, you have Lebanon and Israel, which is. Do you think that that's going to happen? They seem like they're itching to go. They're trying to get fire going in Gaza and stuff.
There's a huge problem where the Israelis do not understand or do not seem to understand that Hezbollah and Hamas are two very, very different animals.
Bro, they think I think that they see it all as Iran. They don't see it as individual groups with different power like dynamics. I mean, obviously Hezbollah is stronger than Hamas, just geographically, let alone, but I don't think that I agree with you. They don't seem to be approaching Hamas any different or Hezbollah than Hamas, and it is going to be a very, very. It's going to be like 2006, man.
They're technically 0-2 against Hezbollah.
Yeah, the only thing Hezbollah has to do is just put immense pressure on the Israeli population. That's the problem that Israel has is they can't stay in a long sustained war because they just don't have the population to do so. Not in terms of casualties, but taking men away from the economy at a time when you're already dealing with massive domestic issues, right? It's just they've just kind of been put on the back burner since October 7th. But they're still there. It's still bubbling underneath. And whenever Israel comes out of this, those problems are still going to be there, right? Unless some crazy paradigm shift happens and everybody kind of gets on the same page. But a lot of people don't like Bibi Netanyahu, and Netanyahu doesn't like the opposition, right? So they're constantly going at it. They disagree about Gaza, they disagree about Hamas, they disagree about Hezbollah and Iran, striking Syria and stuff like that. So there is this. All I think Iran has to do is wait out Israel at this point. Like they don't necessarily have to escalate. I think they want to maintain their dominance of this escalation ladder that they have with Israel. and you're just watching them just poke, all while Israel can't seem to finish off Gaza and Hamas. That fighting is still going on there. It's not as
It's lasted
expensive as
so
it
much.
is.
I thought this would have been quick, honestly, back in
Bro,
October.
it's been 5 months. The Israelis couldn't capture their own open air prison in 5 months. Like that's unbelievable with full air superiority. Like,
And it's interesting, Hamas's strategy here, with the tunnels, because they're weaponizing international law basically.
Yep.
And time is not on Israel's side with this, because the longer it goes on, it doesn't even matter that the calculus for war crimes is what it is and what constitutes one and what doesn't. The damage in public perception is already done.
Yep.
I have never seen this many Americans talking about defunding Israel.
Yeah, which is crazy because especially the Democrats, man, I'm seeing protests all over. I hear about Israel and Gaza 9 times more than I hear about Ukraine. So, and it's not usually good. Like even like the pro-Israelis, like outside of crazy online circles, people are like, what the hell are they doing, man? It's a bad look. It's not good.
And if you look at the demographic polling in the United States, the younger generations are majoritarily pro-Palestine.
Yeah.
This isn't enough to tip policy scales yet. Give it one generation.
True. It'll get worse. And as all of the boomers die too, that because those are like the people that are really the hardcore Israel supporters. Most of the people that have like religious aspects to what they believe. That's the base of America that supports Israel, because Israel is like this founding the state of Israel is what brings on the rapture. So whatever, crazy talk. It's crazy. For me,
like
dying over land you consider to be magical it's wild to me. Like if I was an Israeli living in Israel, I obviously, religion is so important to people, and that's their holy land and everything. But my God, man, it like just generation after generation of just death. It's like the least holy thing I can think of.
Scott, Zag has arrived, it looks like.
Oh, what's up, Zag? All right. What got your interest in this war? You're not Russian or Ukrainian, just out of curiosity. Yeah. So when I was I must have been 14 at the time, maybe 15. All of the stuff, the Maidan protests and everything in Ukraine, the coup happened. I'd been following some of the tensions leading up to it. I followed the entire winter where they were protesting and everything. And then I started understanding like that the US was probably backing this. A lot more came out. And then I watched a bunch of people get burned in Odessa alive. And that was pretty much for my young brain at the time, watching people get burned alive like that. And then it turning into a civil war over that. And then Crimea got captured, and then the war in the East began. And then I followed it through 2014, 2015, just like, honestly, like live map, which is hilarious for me to say now, was what I was using as my source, because I just didn't know. I didn't have any idea of what was happening. And then I started to realize that these were like not good resources because they were not telling the truth. And then it kind of died down, and then I wasn't really paying attention to it for a little while. And then when it all started back up again, I was like, oh, I know all of this already. I already know all of the history. I've been watching this and paying close attention for 10 years now, close, or 8 at the time. I was like, I can at least understand what's going on. And then I started following it more and more and got into the more reporting side of it, and then obviously podcasting and stuff. And I love doing it. It's my favorite thing to talk about. The whole like not being connected to it. I mean, I think that both of these countries are beautiful. I think that their history is unbelievable. I'm also a big World War II guy, and this part of the world is like, you're listening to, I see people talk about like, oh, we're going to fight, when is the push for Kharkov going to happen? And I'm like, it happened in 1945. I've seen it. I saw it 3 times or so. So, it's like that part is also cool, that this is a very like, there's a lot of history in this area and it goes back, and the arguments for one side or the other are very interesting to me. And also the biggest part of this is my tax dollars are going to get Ukrainians killed. And I don't support that. I don't want, and not just my tax dollars, American tax dollars. As an American citizen, I feel like it's my right to stand up, or it's my duty to stand up and say, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be supporting this, just like in Israel and Gaza, just like any other foreign policy blunder of the United States since 1945, right? Vietnam, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq too, like all of them. They're just like, it's just like this continuous cesspool of errors and fuck ups, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And our president can't even talk. The dude is senile. And the other option for our president is Donald Trump, which is just the biggest meme of all time if you were talking to somebody from 12 years ago. So I think that we're in a very important time period for the United States. I believe that the empire is going to soon, the hegemony is soon going to end. The empire is going to retract. And I think it's going to be a very, very turbulent time. So again, as an American citizen, I believe it's my duty to at least present the alternative information to people who might not have as much time to invest in this as I do. That's why I do it. Clown, why do you do it? Go.
Oh, well, it's my field of study.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
I study political science. I am specialized in my institution's informal war conflict studies program. We don't have a conflict studies program, but you pick your courses because they're conflict studies.
Yeah.
And I've been doing war commentary on and off on Twitter since the Syrian war started. I got real about it during this war. And personally, I think you have a huge advantage over a lot of us because you don't have a personal attachment to either party.
Yeah.
I'm Armenian. I mean, we were part of the Soviet Union for 70 years. We were part of the Russian Empire for another 100. Our relations with Russia go so far back that we still call them Rus. Like, think about that for a second. We still call them Rus. We don't have separate ethnonyms for Ukrainians and Belarusians, or even Russians for that matter. They're just all Rus. So it's our big brother and our little cousin fighting each other.
Yeah, that part is hard for me too. I mean, like I said, I don't have like the ethnic or cultural connection to this place, but I understand the whole brother fighting brother thing. I think some of the worst wars in human history have put ethnically related individuals and culturally similar individuals together. So it's, not together, pit them against each other in war. And that's exactly what you're seeing in Ukraine. It's literally just small Russians killing big Russians, or big Russians killing small Russians. And it's just so unfortunate. It's why I don't support what the West is doing. I don't support the coup. I don't support any of it. So
that's the thing a lot of people don't get. I've been saying it since day one. I don't like this war. I never have. I understand the strategic necessity of it from Russia's perspective, and that's a key. You don't get to agree or disagree on what Russia's perspective is. It's not a matter of opinion. It's their perspective.
This guy asks, why don't the guests show their face? Takes away the trustworthiness. Because the internet is full of absolutely retarded, insane people. Okay. I deal with them 24/7. I have skin that's made out of literally lead. So I don't care about anything. I just don't give a shit literally about anything. You can take that to the bank.
Well, here's the thing. I, about a year and a half ago, promised Wyatt from Defense Politics Asia that if I were to do a face reveal, it would be on DPA open mic. So therefore, I cannot do a face reveal until DPA open mic.
He promised. And Zag is just an enigma. You don't ask Zag why he doesn't show his face. He doesn't show his face because he doesn't want to show his face. That's what it is. Deal with it.
That's right. That's right. I mean, my face has been shown, but I don't want to sort of fuel the fire. I don't want to give these crazy people any more ammunition. Also, like, you know, people can, like you see, Scott has a nice white background, very plain. It doesn't give away anything. But if you like to sort of walk around during these things or sit in different places and then people can see your stuff, you don't want that. It's just more scrutiny, man. Just like more.
Listen.
Away
You're
from the
not.
discussion, you know what I mean?
If you're not an account that has to, like, for me, I doxed myself before they even figured it out. Also, my name on Twitter is literally my middle name, and I go by Scott. I mean, this was not rocket science figuring out who I was, right? This was not some nonsense. But then I also doxed myself on Defense Politics Asia's stream, or his, he did an interview with me, and then nobody even. It went live. It got like 10,000 views. Nobody even knew it was me, I don't think. And then like a month later, they were like, we figured out who he is. And I was like, and then that pissed him off. I think that really pissed him off, that I just didn't care that I got doxxed. I didn't give a shit. My mom was getting calls. My best friend like over in Florida was getting texts about how I'm a neo-Nazi and all this fucking garbage. And I was like, and they were all sending it to me and laughing because they kind of just know. I mean, they know me. They know I'm not like that. I'm like the most like loving human being on the planet. When I know you and I'm like, you know, close with you, I'll do anything for anybody.
They started harassing my favorite professor, and they're like, "Do you know what your student is up to?" And his response was like, "Look, I follow 8 people on Twitter. He's one of them. Obviously, I know what he's doing. I encourage it. Way to go. Keep it up."
It's a political opinion. Like who cares? Like it is not something that you need to lose your job over. It's not something like and honestly, keep it to yourself as well. Like that's the other thing is like all of your opinions probably have some legitimacy somewhere, right? But that doesn't mean that it's for everybody. That doesn't mean that you need to propagate it and, you know, spread it all around. The only thing I do is I point out when people are like wrong or lying.
Also, you don't let me turn on my cam.
Yeah. I don't let him turn on his cam, and don't ask him to turn on his cam. He's not doing it. If anybody has seen my videos with Clown, they know what I'm talking about. It's not happening. All right. Keep it up. We appreciate you. The 3 of you are great. Thank you so much, dude.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Call Me Bond from the Spaces? Who has the little Zelensky avatar?
The who?
I think this is the same Call Me Bond from the Spaces.
Oh, I don't know if I recognize that right here. Yeah.
I think it is. Yeah, he's nice. He's nice. I think his wife doesn't let him come into the Spaces late at night anymore because he gets too riled up and starts shouting.
Damn, that sucks, bro.
I know. So I haven't seen him come in for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's him, yeah. But people ask why I'm interested. Well, I mean, I have a background in history, and since I was a little kid, I've enjoyed spurging about military equipment, hardware, strategy, maps, lots of like military simulation games over the years, just lots of reading. I've been to many of these places that we talk about, although not Ukraine, but certainly Russia. And I have a Russian background, come from a Russian family. So Russian history has always been an interest of mine. And mostly in this part of the world, it's important because so many people know so little about it that all these stereotypes and misnomers are spread and propagated. And it's important for people to know that they're not true and that they're not accurate and that there's much more to it and that Russia is sort of like this great cultural, artistic behemoth. And it should be probably more respected than it is by the West. But a lot of that comes from a place of fear and insecurity. It always has. The West has always said, oh, they're the barbarians who stole the notions of the French court ideal. But, the Russians say, but we have all the resources. We have the manpower and the ingenuity, and you fear us. So there's some truth to both of that. But like, yes, I'm very interested in this conflict, and I try to stay impartial. But you know, sometimes it gets difficult with some of the nonsense that you see.
Yeah, it is. It is difficult when, yeah, it's you. Obviously, all of us have a bias, and that bias comes into play. I try to keep it out of like my mapping and everything like that. But yeah, when it comes to like, bro, some of the personalities in the information space, it's not even so much about Ukraine. Like, it's so weird. I feel like I live in like two like separate worlds at the same time. I live in one world where there's this war happening in Ukraine and I'm covering it. And then there's this whole other world that's like Twitter and like the information space where you're dealing with the stupidest human beings you've ever encountered in your entire life. And then some of the smartest human beings you've ever encountered in your entire life as well. But and I like to sit on the side with a lot of the smarter individuals. And I consider people like the Dr. Sneckle. Let me think.
Oh, Dr. Snack is fantastic. Armchair Warlord is also fantastic.
Yeah, Armchair Warlord.
Certainly.
Big Surge as well. I follow all. Oh, my dog just barked. I follow them very closely because I believe that they are some of the, I get into spaces sometimes. Have you ever been in 333 space, Clown?
Oh, I have. He's quite good.
Yeah. He's really good, and he always has like Snack and Big Surge and all those guys, and I'm listening to them talk, and bro, I feel like such an idiot. I'm listening to them talk. The way they talk about things, especially like Doctor, he'll go like so deep into stuff. I'm like, how do you know all this information? I feel like I'm kind of like a guy for the layman. Like, I can explain everything. I deliver the information properly. And then these guys are like, I don't want to mean this in a bad way. I don't mean they're legitimately autistic. I mean that they're like autistic about these things and they can just talk about them forever, in depth, in detail. And I kind of get lost sometimes in what they're saying. I'm like, man, you guys know so much more information about things than I do about certain things. And it's like so interesting to just like listen to them talk.
They have a technical or professional background, especially
Absolutely.
too.
This is a good one. This is a good take right here. Intel Schizo and David are some of the like, I just blocked.
Oh, David is back, Scott. I saw.
Wrong, David.
His account came. The Russian David came back. He was in my space.
Yeah. Oh, the Russian David came back.
Yeah.
Well,
his
Irish
old
David.
account
Yeah.
was restored after his new one was suspended. I don't know.
What is he grifting on now?
I have no idea. I don't want to know, but everyone be careful that Irish David is a grifter. People have sent him money and have been scammed. So watch out.
Yeah,
There is
a lot of money.
A lot of money, like a significant sum. Like
That's crazy.
yeah, we're talking like over
Bro,
6 figures.
hey guys, just a general rule: do not give people money on the internet that you don't like.
If someone drops you a DM and be like, bro, I need money, invest in silver, blah, 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 Slava Russia, like, that's probably a scam.
Yeah, it's all, I mean, they're all, if anybody messages you out of nowhere and starts asking you weird questions, guys, that's a scam. Like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's a scam. And Intel Schizo had blocked me since Charles Johnson, my friend Charles, had sworn to go after him and dox him. So Intel blocked me and only very recently unblocked me. And I see he's got like 36,000 followers now, guys, and has been cited in some publications, and all of this basically from like the stealth space. So good.
Like, I was in a space just before coming here, and he brings up the co-host, and instantly half his panel drops.
Yeah, that's great because you got them all blocked. That's lovely. That's lovely. Good, as it should be. I mean, but I mean, Scott, I think another plane was shot down today.
I did see that question from somebody. Was how many planes were shot down?
Yeah, and now even it was a major account of Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, maybe, and there are lots of comments in there with NAFO avatars saying, look, I really want to believe this, but we haven't seen visual confirmation for the last like 10 claims.
Yeah,
please show us something, please.
It's because they're getting BTFO'd by these glide bombs, dude. They're getting ravaged, and
man,
this is something that I really
Clusters
don't think
come
people
in
are
that
taking
too.
into account is how significant the Ukrainian losses are in defensive positions and in staging areas. These Russian, I mean, they're hitting places with Fab 1500s now. Nothing in a certain area really makes it out of there, and they're accurate. They seem way more accurate than when they drop 4 500s or 250s. There seems to be like 2 that are really accurate, 1 that's a little off, and then 1 that's like way off. And you're like, okay, what happened to that one? But with these 1500s, man, they hit like buildings exactly where they're supposed to hit. Crazy, just crazy stuff.
The Russian Ministry of Defense has released a bunch of videos in the last couple weeks of the Tornado S rocket artillery system that they've brought in.
I'm so hyped.
That's very accurate, and they're using HIMAR style cluster munitions for those when they're within like 13-mile range or a 13-kilometer range rather.
I am so excited for when this conflict ends and the Russian Ministry of Defense just starts pumping out footage that they're holding. Bro, we saw that SOF video the other day from summer of 2023, and there was a Patriot system that was hit by a drone. And
why don't they just show that? Why don't they just show that like immediately?
Because they do not give a shit. It's not the war that they are fighting. That's the thing that like it's still to this day. They do not play the propaganda game in the same way like the PR game. They don't post everything. They manage OPSEC incredibly close. All the footage we see is like 2 to 3 days old. Like these Abrams, they've been sitting in a field for a week now. We're just seeing them now because the Russians are at a position where they're like, oh, okay, we can release this footage and it's not going to interfere with operations on the ground.
Did you guys catch Jihadi Julian where he had to delete his post about the Su-34s because he looked into his video proof and then realized that the only video evidence of it is actually a burning haystack?
literally they've said they've down 10 in the past whatever days. Like there has not been a single Su-34 downed according to fighter bomber or any evidence.
1/3 of the Su-34 fleet.
Yeah,
half of it in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you where the damage is coming from. If the propaganda starts claiming something in a particular direction, it's usually because that missile is absolutely fucking them up. And that's what happened with the Kinjals. They started claiming Kinjals. It's what you're seeing with the Su-34s. And it's I think the only airplanes that we can kind of say have been shot down in the past month were potentially the A-50s, right? Those 2. And then the 2 Su-35s that fighter bomber admitted both of those were shot down. So,
yeah, the A-50 still remains a curiosity. The most recent incident. What really piqued my interest was when there was a report that an IL-22 maritime observation craft may have been involved in something.
That was so that claim came from a claim that 2 planes had been shot down.
Right.
And really, it was just the tail section.
Right. That a missile had been shot down, and that the Ukrainian side said 2 additional planes had been shot down, and that a missile had hit 1 plane, and a Russian missile had hit the other, and we got 2. Lovely. Well, yeah. I mean, obviously something was hit. So, I mean, an A-50, would have some sort of a larger profile. The explosion was big, but we've seen much larger explosions from some of those IL-76 planes.
Yes.
With big 4 engine, reserves of fuel. The other one is a large plane, but it's significantly smaller. It's a turboprop, and that just doesn't have the same type of jet fuel in it. And I think an IL-22 is still a bad loss, right? Still like a $20 million aircraft or something like that. So it's, I mean, either way, something.
No,
like that, but the
I'm putting myself in the position where I just am basically saying that 2 A-50s were shot down, and the thing is, like,
I own it, whatever, yeah.
I'm just saying that just so I have, from my an analysis standpoint, I have the full complete picture, even if it's an incorrect complete picture. I still go off of that basis, and it makes sense because they're restarting production of A-50s, right? They realize that this is a very important aspect of their military. They're going to probably be in military conflicts for the foreseeable future in different parts of the world, putting out different fires and stuff. So restarting the manufacturing of this aircraft is not a bad idea. Of all of the good investments to make, AWACS reconnaissance aircraft are.
Didn't they also receive bring 2 A100s into service recently?
They have 2
tested.
A100s, but I don't know if they're necessarily in service.
They're undergoing testing in the East, and there is no, of course, like the Russian Ministry of Defense stopped giving information basically like late 2021, when they claimed they were starting these late summer military drills, and it just was a buildup of forces that they were secretly doing. And I think a lot of the reporting is outdated. So they were in testing in 2018, and then nothing has been indicated since as to what's happened. So
yeah, and I don't think. I mean, they could be producing them right now, and I don't think we would even know about it. Again, Russia.
Yeah, I mean, if they test them, we'll have no idea either. They won't. Yeah,
is people are claiming that all of them are the A-50s are destroyed or removed from theater, but like there's satellite imagery all over the place. There's at least 7 in active service, 4 of them at Taganrog, the other 3 at 1 near 2 near Astrakhan, and 1 more at I don't remember what the airbase is called, with like evidence of like plowing the snow around it. They're there and they're there one day, not the other. Like, no, like people make too many absurd claims when there's ample evidence to the contrary. It's obscene.
If you look at old satellite pics from just before the conflict started, there's one base near Rostov that has like 7 old A-50s just like sitting. I don't know if they're cannibalizing them for parts or whatever. So I think they have a larger amount of them in storage, but to get one like wheeled out, ready to go, like the one they just introduced was probably coming out regardless. I don't think they had to divert anything. But yeah, you're like exactly right. The fact that they restarted these definitely means at least one has been destroyed.
The one near Rostov is Taganrog.
Taganrog, yeah, that one. Yeah, they had a lot sitting there. I have no idea what happened to them or what they did with them. But I don't know. I mean, it's naive to assume that the Russians don't have a lot of something except like the Su-57 or whatever. Or if it's a prototype, or they generally have a lot of it if it's been in production.
Even with the very few Su-57s that they have, with I think 56 of them, that's more than the entire Ukrainian Air Force right now.
Yeah,
easily.
It's it's one of these things where like people just need to understand that the Russians, they have the industry, they will be able to produce these planes. And I think Ukraine, it's only really necessary that they have one AWACS reconnaissance aircraft operating around Ukraine at any given time. I don't think that they need much more than that. So they can lose 8 more, I guess, and then 2 A100s potentially before they're completely out. Not saying that they want to do that for their national security reasons, obviously, but in terms of like what Ukraine requires, it's usually just one AWACS reconnaissance aircraft that flies either north or south. So
I mean for now, but say somehow another front is opened in Belarus or something, you're going to need a second one for that.
Oh yeah. No, that's why they're reproducing it, or they're starting production again, is because they very clearly see that this is a very high value target, very vulnerable to drones, to our own friendly fire. I mean, anytime you lose one of these planes, it becomes significant.
Not only, but the Russians have stressed from the beginning of the war that they're not going to deplete other areas of their military geographically for this SMO. This is going to be a rotation-based operation. So you see like Marines from Vladivostok in here. You see special forces from Yekaterinburg. I mean, they're coming from all over, and they're not going to just remove the sort of active duty A-50 from the Pacific coast just because there's been an issue. They're going to drag one out of service. Coincidental timing or whatever, I don't know, but it was there, ready to go.
Don't they also have like? Aren't there also like eight of them that are mothballed? They can just start refurbishing.
Exactly. At least, and then they have older variations of them, and then they have different types of monitoring planes. There's also one that the presidential forces use. They have like 5 or 6 of for like the cabinet. There's a different variation of that, which is also like a nuclear intel collecting plane. So that's not the only thing they have or could use. And they also launched a couple satellites in the last month for real-time observations, like Maxar level quality satellites. So they're certainly improving their game.
They just put up what, 4 the other day?
Yeah, I mean it's probably been way more. It's
I mean,
6,
just four in one launch, and they've been doing launches like bi-monthly.
Right. No, they've definitely been improving recon. They have much better ISR.
Yeah, their ISR is way better.
And they're getting help on ISR from China. Let's not forget that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We know this because actually Dr. Snekotron is pretty damn good at finding information. And it was revealed that Wagner was purchasing ISR from China, and that has to have been going through the MOD. So if Wagner was getting it, then so was Russia.
Yeah. Let's get to this question, and then we got some other questions. M1A1 with depleted uranium package versus T90M. Who wins? Whoever sees the other person first. Honestly,
I was gonna say in like an even playing field on like the same.
Both
terrain.
have APS-FD, so they're gonna penetrate each other's armor if they hit. It's literally who sees the other person first.
It depends. Does the T90 have a depleted uranium mesh in its armor like the M1 does?
Yeah, I guess that would matter. I don't know. I still think it's whoever sees the other person first. If a tank gets a shot off on another tank and it connects, you're probably going to lose a track. You're probably going to have some sensor damage. Your visuals are going to be messed up and stuff. I think it's basically whoever hits the other person first is going to be the winner. Whoever sees the other person first. I mean, whoever gets eyes on.
Because a lot of these questions, when people answer them, they put the two things in a vacuum, one-on-one, not in a realistic scenario. In a realistic battlefield, whoever sees the other one first is going to get FP.
And it's not even. It would never even be an M1A1 versus a T90. It's these weapons are used as like support roles, right? So they roll up, they're armored support, they fire their gun,
pressing fire. Yes.
Yeah, and then they get out, right? That's what they don't stick around. It's not like just out hunting with an Abrams. That's not really how these vehicles work. So usually what's going to happen is the Abram and the T90 both lose, and they both got hit by FPV drones without even ever seeing each other.
Exactly. It's the drones. I mean, but
or artillery.
Like what's really interesting with these drone attacks, they can find them like, the scoot and shoot. These tanks are leaving at like 30, 40 miles per hour sometimes. And they have intel to figure out that that's happening, and they coordinate it so well. And then the drone just effortlessly eliminates this like $6 million, $4 million, $3 million tank. So it's
there's also that in this conflict in particular, the T90 is lighter, and Soviet bridges are designed to carry the weight of Soviet tanks, not the much heavier Western tanks.
Yeah.
So there's a huge mobility aspect to consider.
Thank you for being here, Tyler. I appreciate you, man. I'm glad you made it. I'm sorry it's so late. It wasn't supposed to be. This was supposed to happen yesterday, guys, and then I just got busy and I was exhausted when I got home yesterday, and then today was another full day. So next Saturday, though, I'm actually going to tell you guys this too because you're both invited. I'm going to be doing a roundtable. So next Saturday, you guys can come join me. I have some other guests coming as well. I'm going to keep those a secret for now, and they will be joining me hopefully next Saturday. That's the plan right now. So we'll have a good roundtable. I think I'm gonna try to kind of take over for Gonzalo. He was doing that for a little bit, right?
Yeah, or very
Yeah.
early on, he was doing roundtables. There
He
were
had a long
good
series of them, Vaughn. Like he did like 20 of them.
Yeah,
18, something like that.
yeah. So I'm gonna try to pick up that mantle and start doing roundtables with knowledgeable guests. So that'll be fun.
That'd be
I don't know
good
when
to
to do it
do.
every Saturday, but
Yeah, there's been a void, and towards the end, he had these like sort of open house style where he ran them for like 3 to 5 hours, and people would just come in and out, come back, sort of interesting back and forth, nice discussions. I think you should do that. That would be a lot of fun.
thank you so much, Mila. I appreciate your super sticker. You can always ask a question with those too, if you have a question to ask. But I appreciate all of your guys' support. It has been an awesome live stream. I think that's where I'm going to wrap it up. It's that's an hour and 30 minutes. I love you guys so much. I love you, Clown. I love you, Zag. We will be doing this again very soon, I'm sure. Once again, Clown and Zag are both invited to my roundtable, so they might be joining me next Saturday if the time permits it for them. Thank you guys for coming on and talking. I know everybody loves to hear from you. Guys, go follow
having us, dude. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, go follow Clown and Zag on Twitter. Zag hosts awesome spaces. Clown posts very funny satirical stuff as well as informational stuff. So go check him out. He's a pleasure to follow. And then also go check out these guys when they're in spaces, man. They kill it. They're doing them all the time. I appreciate all of your guys' support.
Thanks, Scott.
The posting will go back to regular tomorrow. I'm back at it. I just got busy this weekend, so I'm sorry, guys. Good news is there wasn't a ton of news this weekend, so we'll get going early tomorrow morning. Be safe, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which leaves a lot of options open for you guys. So take care and have fun. Bye.